I hadn't seen my brother's face in 5 years. Not once. No calls, no texts, nothing. And now here I was, standing outside the Amber Room in downtown Charleston, staring at my own reflection in that glass door, wondering if walking in was even a good idea. My mother's 60th birthday. That's the only reason I showed up. Because no matter what happened, no matter how bad things got, she's still my mom. And honestly, some things you just don't skip. The Amber Room wasn't just some restaurant, y'all. This place was next level. Chandeliers dripping gold light, servers moving like they trained at some fancy academy in Europe, and a hostess stand that looked straight out of a movie. I walked in wearing a simple navy dress and flats I'd had for years. Nothing fancy. I wasn't there to impress nobody. I was there for my mom. That's it. I saw Jessica first, my brother's wife, standing near the private dining room in heels that probably cost more than my old car payment, laughing at something with that same tight, practiced smile she always had. The kind of smile that never once reached her eyes when she looked at me. "Oh, you actually showed up," she said, looking me up and down like I'd walked in wearing a garbage bag. "We honestly weren't sure you would." "It's Mom's birthday," I said simply. "Of course I came." She let out this little laugh, the kind that's not really a laugh, more like a knife wrapped in sugar. "Well, I hope you can afford dinner here, honey. This place isn't exactly cheap." I didn't say a word back. I just walked past her into the private room because honestly, 5 years is a long time to get used to people underestimating you. You stop reacting after a while. You just watch. And let me tell you, by the end of that night, watching would turn out to be the smartest thing I did. The room was gorgeous, long table, candles flickering, city lights glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows, and there was my mom, sitting at the head of the table in a soft blue dress, looking older than I remembered, softer somehow, and right next to her, my brother Nathan, the same Nathan who used to be my best friend growing up, the same Nathan who 5 years ago stood in our old living room and told me I needed to pack my things and go. Just days after his wedding. Days, y'all. I still don't fully know everything that went down behind closed doors before that happened, but I'll get to that. "There she is," Mom said when she saw me, standing up to hug me. It felt stiff, careful, like she wasn't sure how close to get anymore. "We were starting to think you got lost." "Traffic," I said, which was true, but honestly, not the whole reason I was late. I just needed a minute in my car first. "Well, you're here now," Mom said, gesturing toward the far end of the table. "We saved you a seat." Of course they did. Wedged between my teenage nephew who wouldn't look up from his phone and an empty chair nobody wanted. The worst seat in the whole room. I sat down without a word. Nathan didn't even look at me, not once. Just kept scrolling on his phone like I was some stranger who wandered into the wrong party. Jessica ordered champagne loud enough for the whole room to hear. "The good stuff," she said, smiling at Mom. "Only the best for you tonight." When the server got around to me, she held up her hand. "Actually, just water for her. Champagne's a little pricey." I looked at that server, calm as ever. "I'll have the champagne," I said. He hesitated, glanced at Jessica, then poured it anyway. Her smile stayed frozen, but something behind her eyes tightened up real quick. Nobody at that table had the slightest idea what I'd built in the 5 years since they threw me out. Not one of them knew about the sleepless nights in a one-bedroom apartment, coding till 4 in the morning, teaching myself things I had no business learning that fast because I had no safety net left, no family to fall back on, just me, a secondhand laptop, and something to prove, mostly to myself. They thought I was still that same struggling girl who disappeared. What they didn't know, what none of them saw coming, was about to walk through those kitchen doors before dessert even hit the table. Dinner kept rolling, and honestly, watching that table was like watching a performance nobody asked for. Jessica ordered for everybody, picking the priciest things on the menu without even glancing at what they cost. Going on about how Nathan found this place, how it was apparently the hardest reservation in the whole city. Mom just nodded along, still trying to keep the peace like she always did. Nathan barely said 2 words to me the whole time. Not one question about my life, my job, Nothing. Like I was some distant cousin nobody quite remembered inviting. At one point, Jessica leaned over, real quiet, like she was doing me some big favor. Just so you know, the appetizers alone are like $30 each. We're splitting the bill, so maybe throw in 100 if you can swing it. I just nodded and took another sip of my champagne. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Not yet, anyway. Then, my nephew, who'd barely looked up from his phone all night, finally spoke. "So, Aunt Emily, you still doing that coding thing?" Everybody chuckled a little, like it was cute, like it was some hobby I picked up between failed attempts at a real life. "Something like that," I said, keeping my voice light. Little did they know. Jessica jumped right in. "Oh, that's right. You were doing some little computer thing after everything happened." She said it so casual, like she hadn't been the reason I got thrown out of my own home 5 years ago, like it was nothing, like it didn't completely flip the whole direction of my life upside down. Nathan finally looked at me then, just for a second. There was something in his eyes, guilt maybe, or just plain discomfort. I honestly couldn't tell. He looked away just as fast. "It's actually going really well," I said calmly. "That's sweet," Jessica said, patting my hand like I was some kid who'd just learned to ride a bike. "I mean, it's good you found something to keep you busy. Not everybody's cut out for real careers and stability." I'm not gonna lie. That one stung a little more than I expected, but I let it slide right off, same as everything else that night. Dessert came out, some chocolate thing that probably cost more than a week's groceries used to cost me back when I was starting out. My aunt, who'd flown in for the birthday, mentioned how the whole dinner must be costing a fortune. Nathan confirmed it, said something like $4,000, easy, but said Mom deserved it. "She really does," Jessica said, squeezing Mom's hand like she was the one who raised her. That's when Jessica turned back to me, voice low again. "So, that $100, you're good for it, right? I mean, no offense, but I wasn't even sure you'd be able to afford coming out tonight." She said it quiet, but not quiet enough, because Nathan heard it too, and he actually smirked a little. That smirk did something to me. 5 years of silence, 5 years of being erased from my own family, and that little smirk just sat there like it was funny. I set my glass down slow, and that's when the kitchen doors swung open, and the head chef walked straight toward our table, looking right at me. And for a second, I swear, my heart actually skipped, because I knew exactly what was about to happen, and there was no taking it back once it did. "Miss Whitfield," he said, warm and clear enough for the whole table to hear, "I wanted to personally make sure everything's been perfect tonight." The whole table went dead silent. Every single conversation just stopped, like somebody hit pause on the whole room. I smiled up at him. "Everything's been wonderful, thank you." "Wonderful," he said, nodding. "It's always an honor having you here." He gave a small bow and walked back toward the kitchen, leaving behind a silence so thick you could have heard a fork drop from across the room. Jessica's face had gone completely blank. Nathan slowly set his phone down for the first time all night. "Why did he call you that?" Jessica asked, her voice suddenly a lot less confident. "Why does he know your name?" I looked around the table, at my mother's confused face, at Nathan's frozen expression, at Jessica, who'd spent the whole night making sure everyone knew exactly how little she thought of me. And honestly, y'all, this next part, I'd been waiting 5 years to say out loud. I took a slow sip of water, letting the silence stretch just a little longer. "Probably because I own this restaurant," I said. Nobody moved. I swear, for a solid 10 seconds, you could have heard a pin drop clean across that room. My mom's hand shot straight to her chest. Jessica just sat there, mouth slightly open like her brain hadn't caught up to her ears yet. What?" Nathan finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I own this place," I said, still getting used to saying it out loud myself. "Bought it about 2 years ago. Part of a bigger investment my company made in the hospitality space downtown." "Your company," Jessica repeated, like the words tasted weird coming out of her mouth. "Whitfield Tech," I said calmly. "Started it about 4 years ago. Software first, mostly booking and management systems for restaurants and small businesses. It did well. Real well, actually. well enough that we started buying up places instead of just building software for them. And honestly, that part right there, that's the part nobody at that table saw coming, not even a little. Nathan was just staring at me now, and I could see it. That thing happening behind his eyes, the math working itself out real slow. All those years of silence, all those Christmases I wasn't invited to, all those birthdays where nobody bothered picking up the phone. And here I was, sitting in the seat they gave me, the worst seat in the whole room, and I owned the entire building. But you were, we heard you were struggling, Mom said, her voice shaking. Somebody said you were working some retail job up in Nashville. I did work retail, I said, for about 8 months after y'all put me out. Had to. Rent doesn't pay itself, and I didn't exactly have nobody to fall back on. I let that sit there a second, watching Nathan's jaw tighten up. Worked nights, taught myself to code during the day, built my first little app in a coffee shop with free Wi-Fi because I couldn't afford my own internet. Sold that app, built another one, kept going from there. Jessica's eyes were filling up now, and honestly, I couldn't tell if it was shame or plain shock. I didn't know, she said quietly. I swear I had no idea about any of this. You weren't supposed to, I said, not unkind, just honest. Because after a while, I stopped trying to tell y'all anything. Every time I called with good news, somebody changed the subject real quick. So I figured, why keep knocking on a door that's not going to open? Nathan finally spoke, and his voice cracked a little doing it. I never should have let her. I never should have made you leave. That was on me, not just Jessica, me. I let my own sister walk out with 2 suitcases because I was scared of starting my marriage off wrong, and I never once checked on you after that, not one time in 5 years. No, I agreed quietly. You didn't. The server came by then with the check, and I waved him off before he even got close. This one's on the house, I said. Consider it my gift to Mom tonight. Emily, you don't have to, Mom started. I know I don't have to, I said, softer now. I want to. Jessica reached over, hesitant, like she wasn't even sure she had the right anymore. I've been horrible to you tonight, all night, honestly. I said things She stopped, wiping under her eyes. I'm sorry, for real. I know, I said, just that. Not, it's okay, because honestly, it wasn't. Not completely. Not yet. 5 years doesn't undo itself over one dinner and one apology, no matter how sincere it sounds in the moment. Mom reached for my hand across the table, her fingers trembling a little. I should have fought harder for you back then. I should have told your brother no. I'm your mother. I should have protected you, and I didn't. You didn't, I said again, gentle but firm. But you're trying now, and that counts for something. Nathan cleared his throat. Can we, start over? Maybe grab lunch sometime, just talk, actually listen this time. I looked at him for a long moment. 5 years ago, this same man told me to pack my bags in under an hour, and now here he was, asking for a second chance like it was owed to him. Maybe, I said finally. We'll see. It wasn't a yes, it wasn't a no either. It was the truth, and honestly, that's all I had left to give him that night. When I finally walked out of that restaurant, past the hostess stand, past the chandeliers, past all of it, my phone buzzed nonstop. Apologies, questions, a missed call from Nathan. I didn't answer right away. I sat in my car for a minute before starting the engine, just breathing, letting it all settle. I drove back home that night, past buildings I owned, through a city that had no clue who I really was, and for the first time in 5 years, my family finally saw me. Not the girl who got kicked out, not the girl who disappeared, the woman I actually became on my own, without a single one of them. Whether that meant anything moving forward, honestly, I still don't know. But for that one night, that was enough.